I think the other thing is sort of just having a very first principle mindset to problem solving. If you can't explain it to yourself, then it's probably wrong. I mean, if a team of founders and leaders in the company, if you guys are not able to, you know, explain why something will work or it won't, it's probably not going to work, because just because four other people are doing it, or X company raised Y dollars in Z economy, it doesn't matter, right? But as long as you have conviction, then go after it, right? So being very first principled about that, and being honest to yourself, saying, look, I don't think this will work, but let me build this anyway because it'll help raise money, is a bad idea.
Dear listeners, before we dive further into the podcast, I would like to thank our partners, Prime Venture Partners. Prime is the first institutional check in category creating tech startups like MyGate, Neo, Dozy, Mfine. Prime is now investing out of its fourth fund, which is more than $100 million. dollars. Today, I have with me Sanjay Swami, managing partner, Prime Venture Partners. Sanjay, congratulations on the 10th anniversary of Prime, and do let us know how will the next 10 years of the Indian startup ecosystem be like.
Thanks, Siddharth, for having us on the show. The last 10 years has just been an amazing ride in India, and it has sort of started getting exponentially more exciting as days go by. And clearly your podcast is itself an example of that. But what we're seeing in India are the benefit of three big trends that have been foundationally laid over the last 10 years. The first one was Aadhaar, India Stack, and of course UPI, which has made movement of money, friction free and basically free and in real time. The second is smartphone and internet penetration along with 4G that is now pervasive across the country. And the third is the entrepreneurial spirit of India, as well as the aspirational youth that we have in India, that has created markets of extreme depth in India itself, right? This is something that was not there 10 years ago. Getting to $5-10 million of revenue was itself a big achievement, but now we're seeing that happening, in 12 to 18 months in some cases. Um, Having said that, I think we're only getting started. The best is yet to come. And what excites us as investors or as early stage entrepreneurs ourselves is really the massive opportunity, because what we're seeing in India is not something that's been seen in the rest of the world. The Western models, the Chinese models, the Israeli models are not what's going to solve India's problems. And the entrepreneurs in India have a unique opportunity to get down here, and just focus on solving India's problems first, which may very well be solutions for other parts of the world, right? And we're seeing some of that starting to happen. And that's where we think there is a spectacular opportunity here. So clearly for us, the best, and for this ecosystem, we are off to a great start, but the best is ahead of us.
So, listeners, let's dive straight into this week's podcast. Today, I have with me Saahil Goel, co founder and CEO of Shiprocket. Shiprocket is one of India's largest data driven logistics aggregation platform, serving some of the top e commerce brands and D2C brands in the country. When D2C brands are thinking of getting their packet shipped to the customer, the end customer, there's only one name they think of today, and that is Shiprocket. Sahil, welcome to the podcast. Today, I'm going to, brainstorm with you, discuss with you the parts of the journey which you have been through. It's been almost a 10-year journey building Shiprocket, and it's very interesting, right, how compounding has happened in the last 5 years, and how you are able to navigate the various set of problems in the e-com domain, uh, and you figured out a niche for yourself, and now today, Shiprocket is almost a unicorn. Your recent round of 185 million valued the company at 950 million. That is such fantastic to see. Companies disrupting the e-com space, the logistics space. Uh, so welcome on the podcast, Sahil.
Thank you so much, Siddharth, for having me. An absolute pleasure being here speaking to you. And thanks a lot for so many kind words. Excited about discussing with you sort of about our journey, and also learning more about your thoughts and insights.
Sahil, I would like to start with your journey before Shiprocket and how you met your co-founders, and then how do you decided to in 2012 build it? What was the problem you was trying to solve at that point in time?
Yeah, so I spent time, before founding Shiprocket in the insurance industry. I worked in India as well as the US for about 6 years, and was basically focused on building enterprise tech and product. So worked in various roles in various companies, but really all throughout got a very good knack of deep product development, software and tech overall. And my co-founder Gautam, who I've known from undergrad, him and I kept brainstorming various ideas, because we both wanted to break out in some ways of our 9 to 5s. He at the time was working in his family business, which was in the distribution of automation parts. So real solid sort of logistics understanding, commercial understanding, and he was an SMB himself, right? I mean, that's what he did for the last 6 years at that time. I also used to build websites since I was in high school. So, while I couldn't do it professionally, I kept in touch, kept tinkering around, kept building projects on the side, just to keep me abreast with what was going on. And then both of us, we saw, I was in the US at the time and Gotham was in India. And we saw what Shopify was doing, right? This was in 2011. So this was long before Shopify was a household name for building websites. It was long before it was the sexiest stock in the world. And what was beautiful about it was that they had taken this process of building a website and really made it super simple. It was like a few clicks and you got the output was amazing. There were other CMSs that had existed at the time, but this was next level, right? It was mind blowing. And I think that just gave us the initial inspiration, and we felt that India will also emerge as a direct commerce destination at some point. India has so many entrepreneurs. There's like 50 million MSMEs, and people are going to sell through demand aggregators, obviously like Amazon, but they are going to be other channels which are more direct in nature. And that sort of completed the research that we did in a few months, and then decided to head back home and launch the company. And we launched the sort of platform. We built the platform all of 2012 and launched in 2013 under the banner of Cart Rocket, which was the sort of outward brand at the time. Since we were building shopping carts, we built sort of launched it on the lines of Shopify, heavily inspired with how they had built their pricing models, how they had built their app store, how they had built the sort of ease of use to be able to do this and make it basically democratized for people to be able to set up their own stores, go live, in a self-service fashion. And through the journey, in the first year itself, we met with Vishesh, who had earlier sold his mobile app startup and was consulting for large e-commerce brands at the time. We decided to join hands with him, brought him on as a co-founder, as our third, and then kind of scaled Cart Rocket over the next 3 to 4 years, raised a few rounds of funding. And over the years, we understood that merchants were actually not struggling with building their websites at mass because they didn't want to. Most of the merchants were long tailish in nature, and Amazon and Flipkart had created a certain amount of market awareness, both in the merchant side as well as in the consumer side. And people were happier to pay commissions and happier to sort of run it like a transactional business as opposed to building a brand online, at least at the time. Which got us to our next pivot, which was called Craftly. And that's the time Akshay joined us, from Amazon, to basically head the Craftly vertical for us. And Craftly was built as a mobile first, long tail application focused on sort of the social commerce segment of the market. It was a payment ready, shipping ready kind of a solution. Soon we added demand channel support as well, and we scaled that to about 200,000 transactions a month by 2017. And during this journey, we started getting very good at managing 3PL shipping, because as we ran the Craftly product or platform, we started understanding the nuances around issues in logistics, pickups, long tail merchants, how they think, issues with RTOs, using intelligence to rank a carrier versus the other, building lanes. So there was a lot of work that went into building sort of a really solid logistics enablement tech for the Craftly platform. So much so that many of our merchants started telling us that we'd like to use your shipping only, in the platform, because it works really well, as opposed to when we try to do this ourselves. And obviously, as a person building a full platform, you want to try and put more into the platform rather than strip it for parts. But that sort of ask from the merchants kept growing. People started saying, can you integrate my Shopify with this and whatnot? And we felt that this was not built the right way to be able to do any of that. So almost as a pilot to try and test this demand from merchants, in 2016, towards the end of 16, we wrote Shiprocket as a separate standalone app, very small pilot to begin with, 4 5 engineers, half a co-founder got invested in it, and we launched it in 17. And honestly, that's how we landed on Shiprocket, which was a series of things we did, where we were working with SMBs, with direct commerce merchants, D2C brands, social commerce merchants across the years, where we basically understood their pulse, understood what kind of business model is going to suit the most. And the market, obviously, in the meantime, there was a pre-post geo world, there was a smartphone in every hand world, there was a pre-post Flipkart Amazon world, and I think all of those forces in some ways came together to create the opportunity for everybody in direct commerce.
And to summarize for our listeners, right, the first version uh, of Shiprocket, which was Cart Rocket, that was a website builder for small merchants where they could build their e-com websites. The second, the second version was a more holistic platform, which was Craftly. And then the last version, right, which you launched in 2017, became Shiprocket, which was stripped down of everything and just became uh, the the everything which happened after the buy now button on D2C websites.
That's right. That's accurate.
That's quite a journey, because people want to add as they are building more stuff. You reduce during your journey. What helped bring such focus?
Yeah, I think we started realizing that sometimes as founders we want to go after really large market sizes,
Yeah.
um, and we should. But the problem with that is, larger the market size at the given time, the more people are there they're going to be, right? I mean, if we built a B2C marketplace in 2015, 16, I mean, it was a really hard journey, right? Would have been a very hard journey to sustain that with so many big folks around. So I think we started understanding that we need to find something which merchants really ask for, as opposed to us having to push it to them, right? And that clarity, and it's a sort of an overused phrase, but one of my investors basically would keep saying, "Are you a vitamin or are you a painkiller?" And it really struck a chord, because as we started analyzing our business, we started realizing that this part of what we've built is actually valuable. Now, it may be valuable to a very small sliver of the market today, but at least there we'll get to kind of win, as opposed to being like a small fish in a really big pond where you can just get eaten. So I think there was no eureka moment as such. I think it was a series of things that didn't work. We would try and benchmark our product market fit sort of metrics with other people across the world, and we could see that we were far below what some of the great companies were doing. That was a data point that would tell us what was going on. So I think as a mixture of all of those things, we were able to kind of zone in on saying that, look, focus is important. We would rather do one thing but do it really really well, so that we build real value, as opposed to spreading ourselves too thin.
And what were the metrics at that point in time that you figured out in 2017, 2018 that Shiprocket is the platform that you want to focus on or build?
Yeah, I think it was pretty crazy, now that I think about it. We were seeing CACs like we had never seen before. We were seeing self-service sign up, almost 70-80% of the merchants, they were coming in, signing up, putting their address, paying money into our wallet without a single human intervention, right? So all happening in a few hours of them exploring the platform. And we always thought this was stuff that was available. I mean, that was visible only in the US, where the merchants were more evolved. But we were amazed to see that happening on the platform in such a seamless manner. Our leads were converting at 25%, 20%. Again, unheard of in a B2B business. And to be fair, we weren't really a traditional B2B software business. This was more of a B2, very small b kind of a model. So some level of consumer influence in the product, in the funnels, in the behavior as well. But still, those are the kind of numbers that were just jaw dropping for us. Retention was another big one, right? In terms of volume retention or transaction retention. That was again something we had never seen. It was north of 150%, right, as early as like the sixth month into the cohort. So when you look at that stuff, you can, I mean, even if forget an operator, but even an analyst will tell you that, look, if you are able to just keep adding people, this will work, right? So then it did go back to the question of, well, how large is the market? Are there millions of people available? Are there hundreds of thousands of people available? Are there tens of thousands of people available? How do we reach them? What's the GTM? So that became the problem statement, as opposed to putting out a fire in every part of the funnel, which is what I think we were trying to do earlier.
And if you can please share, right, some key metrics today of Shiprocket, that how many D2C brands use
Sure.
Shiprocket, or overall how does the ecosystem look like? What is the
Yeah.
GMV that is getting transacted? What is your revenue in that?
Sure. So, see, the overall market is probably maybe 70, 80 billion, maybe all of e-commerce put together in India. And again, this is just an estimate, could
Yeah,
be plus minus, 10% here and there. From this overall market, if you break it up into, let's say, only two verticals, let's call one vertical all horizontals,
yeah,
right? So Amazon, Flipkart, uh, let's put Nika also there. Let's put all of those guys there,
yes,
which are like full stack platforms. Let's put all the big verticals also. Let's put all the horizontals, all the big verticals. Let's put them in one place. And what's left is basically all the direct commerce, right? And direct commerce is, it's not all D2C, right? D2C is sort of another cut on this market size, but it's all direct commerce, which is everybody else who's doing transactions between themselves and the consumer. It could be a very small one-person business running only on WhatsApp, all the way to large brands like Samsung, who are trying to build an omni-channel business directly as well. I mean, the same folks are selling on all channels. So that's the other thing I want to clarify, where many of my merchants, the larger ones, will sell on Amazon, Flipkart, and other places, because that's another channel. But they also want to have a direct presence where 20, 30, 40% of the business does get powered over a period of time, because they see the value in it, right? So all of this pie put together, in our opinion, is between 15 to 20% today of the total market. So it's between a, let's say, between a 15 to 18 billion market today. And I think this market, this direct commerce market, is going to become about 40, 50 billion over the next 5 to 7 years. So there's a huge headroom, right? It's a huge potential. It's grown very rapidly. Out of this market today, we power about $2 billion of GMV, right, through this sort of direct commerce enablement channel. We work with nearly 70,000 total sellers every month, right? About 150,000 sellers a year who are actively shipping with us. Uh, between 10 and 15,000 D2C brands work with us, and I know there's about 1,000 brands out there that are prominent, but there's really these 10, 15, 20,000 newer brands who are getting born, who actually use Shiprocket to power their business from day one, from where then they'll grow, and they'll become sort of the brands of the future. So that's the kind of scale we are at, and we from a top line perspective, it's a we make up north of $100 million in revenue at an annualized basis, and we're growing quite rapidly.
God. And is it a profitable company right now, or is it marginally
Yes.
burning some amount of money?
So a lot of our newer initiatives, obviously, now that we've sort of scaled to, we actually turned net profitable in March of 2019, and till about a couple of months ago, that was true for the entire company. Now, for our established B2C business, it's still profitable, but a lot of our newer initiatives, which obviously are not revenue generating as yet, they burn some money, but it's a pretty small kind of number, because the business model doesn't require a lot of cash burn necessarily. It may require capital for a few things, but it's not really a burn intensive business.
So the scale that you share, right? There is no feet on the street for that you manage. People, merchants integrate your buy now button, and on the back end, they are able to select, which courier or which delivery partner uh,
Yeah.
they can go ahead with Shiprocket, and then you take care of everything between the merchant and the consumer, the tracking part, notification for the consumer, right? So this is the tech layer which you have built.
That's right. So the buy button is still sort of is under beta, and we're trying various models there. Really, today the way it works is, once the order is done, right, we'll integrate into folks like Shopify, Magento, other ERPs like Unicommerce, etc., and we'll pull in whatever order information the merchants are generating there, to give it to them in a single dashboard. Like, it's a self-serve. You can come and connect your channel, or a large part of our almost 40% of our volume of our transactions are actually punched in by hand, right? So there's a lot of social commerce, unstructured commerce going on. So players like Misho obviously are trying to capture some of that on their platform, but there's still so much happening on social channels that people, we're like the app of the hour in many ways for them, to be able to help them process those orders, collect cash on delivery, or whatever it is. So regardless of where they generate the order, it'll reach our OMS, our order management system, from post which the merchant can then allocate various carriers. They can see quality metrics, they can see pricing. Will print sort of compatible labels. Will help them generate the pickup. Will ensure the ops are working. Will ensure the pickups are done. Will manage the tracking end to end from that point on, in conjunction with our partners, obviously at the courier side, and check for any anomalies during transit. Anything that goes wrong, our teams will sync with each other to make sure that the deliveries happen on time. Will help with the last mile workflow, where orders sometimes don't actually deliver, if it's especially a COD order. So there's a bunch of inefficiency at that point, which can result to an RTO, which is a return to origin in an e-commerce parlance. And during this journey, the consumer is obviously kept in loop, right? We try to engage them through various channels like WhatsApp, email, SMS, IVRs, to keep them updated on what's going on. Wherever we need an input from the consumer, that's also automated, so that the merchant isn't sort of writing emails to and fro, going crazy. We'll take that input, push it back to the cat. So we manage that whole thing. And then more recently, we've also launched a self-service returns. So for merchants who want to power returns for the consumer directly, rather than having them send an email, make a ticket, and sort of involve humans, consumers sort of feel much more. Uh, I guess they trust a website much more if they know that there is a self return possible, and they can just do it without, like Amazon, without having to talk to anyone. So now we're starting to power that as well, including refunds, right? So again, the view is to be able to build the whole stack. which is the post purchase stack, and give information to the consumer, to the merchant, and really build a seamless platform between the retailer, the carrier, and the consumer, so that all of this can happen without any manual intervention.
And recently, also, you have launched warehouse as a service for your merchants or the D2C brands where they can enable same day or 2 hour shipping to their set of consumers, where they can choose, one of your warehouse partners to keep their inventory in.
That's right. That's right. So it's launched as a, I mean, see, our hypothesis again, we were an integrations company. We were building software to help merchants integrate, their shipping in a better way. From that, we sort of grew to becoming a merchant experience company, right? We started focusing on all of the in transit issues, post transit issues, and whatnot. And from there, we are now on the journey to say, look, we should be a consumer experience company. So we can give CX on a tap or CX as a service to our merchants to say, look, just plug us in and we'll take care of this. We'll give you, better NPS scores than you were before, better repeat than you had before, and so on. So as part of that endeavor, one of the things that you'll appreciate is the fact that faster delivery is becoming, it's hygiene, to be honest. That's how we look at it. It's no longer a luxury, because if everyone's doing it, then if you don't, then you lose out. And we saw this, we've seen it with the horizontal commerce stack as well, right? I mean, you look at 10 years ago, and you ask somebody, would you buy clothes online? No one would buy clothes online, right? Started with books and electronics, then clothes became real, and then books and electronics were coming in 2 3 days, right? Then 2 years ago, everything was coming the next day or 2 days, and now everything is coming next day. At least as consumers, we want that because now that's become the habit. So it's clear that getting things faster is definitely a big experience builder, and the world is moving in that direction. Now when it comes to smaller brands, if there's a coffee brand in Bangalore and they process, let's say, 1,000 transactions a month, it's not easy for them to figure out where to put their stuff, how to rent warehouses, how to operate them remotely. And that's where we can step in saying, what will help you place inventory across various locations in the country. And then as and when your orders come in, we'll allocate them to the nearest point of supply so that same day delivery, next day delivery can be managed, right? So think of it like building a prime like experience for the direct commerce part of the market, using third party warehouse partners who actually do, again, the sort of on ground stuff, and then we stay in the tech layer, right? We help manage the entire stitching up of this, the in-house, I mean, the in warehouse operations, all of that stuff is managed through tech, which is what we control. And in a more recent, there's obviously this whole 10-minute, 15-minute, 30-minute delivery around grocery that's going on. A lot of D2C brands have expressed interest in trying to do something like that on their own channels as well. Again, similar thought process that consumers will eventually, their buying behaviors will shift. They will want things instantly. They may not want everything instantly, but if you're a brand with 100 SKUs, they may want the top five, or you may want your top five SKUs to be available in a matter of a couple of hours as a great value added service to the consumer. So we're on that path now to basically say that, okay, well, we've already cracked same day, next day delivery. How do we now bring the stuff even closer to consumer demand pockets, using micro fulfillment centers or dark stores, and then use a hyper local delivery network to be able to make the final mile and make it happen in 2 hours. So that's sort of the evolution in some ways of the speed of shipping, and we think that it'll keep moving. Like a lot more of it will start moving into faster commerce or faster deliveries. I think that's the way the future is going to look, in our opinion.
And if you can share, how, in terms of GMV or in terms of revenue or in terms of merchants, right? Either one of those, that how has the platform grown year on year till now since the launch in 2017?
Yeah. So in 17, I have some recollection. I think the first year our number of merchants was maybe like 2,000 or something like that. From there it became like 4x to like 8,000, again like a 3.5x to 25,000, and then from there we're now sitting on 75,000. So it's been growing between three and four, I mean now let's say 2.5 and 3x every year. GMV I don't remember, I've not triangulated it, but I remember, when we crossed our first million shipments a month mark, it was not very far back. It was only 2 years ago, or 2.5 years ago, and it's today we are processing in excess of 7 million shipments a month. So it has grown pretty rapidly as a platform, and then also as a company we've had to kind of reinvent every few months, because in hyperscale things like whatever you design today, it just does, after 3 4 months it doesn't work. So you have to get better at being able to design 12 months ahead, and we had never had to deal with that problem earlier. So I think it last 6 to 12 months have been focused on planning ahead in terms of what's going to be needed as we keep scaling the platform and the company overall.
But how do you do that? Because like at such a scale that you operate in, many things are breaking on a daily basis. So as founders, how do you dedicate your energies to fixing those things, as well as then spending time towards building the processes for the future?
Yeah, I think it has to be done with a team. It's impossible for one person or a team of founders even to do this. Till about year and a half ago, we were primarily a founder-led, and operated company where we were saying, "Oh, we'll fix the present, clean the past, and dream the future, and do pilots of the future, and build the future, and we will be HR and everything else, right?" And then you realize that you just can't. I mean, it's as simple as that. So, we invested in a rock solid leadership team that's sort of come on board. We already had great people working with us. We just sort of augmented that even more to bring in newer leaders, more experienced than us, leaders who understand the market better than us, who have seen scale much more than us. And we are learning from them. They are helping us kind of shape up into what we should look like if we are to achieve the kind of goals that we are setting for ourselves. So I think it's a constant learning. To be honest, it's a constant act of deciding what you are not going to do. It's a constant act of prioritizing, focusing really hard on actual outcomes and not sort of what you feel like doing. So I think that's sort of the big insight, personal insight, if I can share with the viewers on this show.
And how is your typical day split like on the work side?
यार वो भी चेंज हो रहा है every 3 months. That lineup is also changing. But as of the last 6 months, I'm trying to do a lot more bird's eye stuff. I'm trying to do a lot more external meetings, because from being like pure operator to sort of becoming much more strategic is a very interesting ride, because it's polar opposites in some ways. And I'm a fairly detail oriented guy, but I'm constantly working on trying to, because there's so many threads now that are happening in parallel. So typically I think I spend a lot of time doing one-to-ones with my team. I'll spend a lot of time doing monthly reviews, weekly reviews with a bunch of core team members, core functions of the company, and I think that pretty much works. And we also follow the OKR process within the company, have been doing it for about 3 years now, and that's immensely helped, because I'm so happy we put it in place when we did, and saw the results also very early. Like we saw the results in about 6 to 12 months of implementing it. So it just became part of the company culture, and then as we scaled from that 300 400 people to 750 800 people now, it was much easier to at least align everyone on where are we going, what are we doing, why are we doing it, and what is the expectation in terms of outcome. So I think that some of those frameworks and structures have really helped to kind of focus on what matters, at various levels in the org.
And currently, you charge your merchants a SaaS based revenue or a fixed fee or a mixture of both.
It's a mixture. So it's a freemium model. You can come into the forever free plan or whatever, and then you pay per shipment. And then you can also buy one of our membership plans that helps you lock in a better pricing. It helps you get access to better level of support. It'll give you more features on the platform and so on.
So essentially, let's say if you are doing a $2 billion of GMV, and you are taking 100 million as your revenue, essentially you are, making on a wholesome 5%. Uh, and would that be correct?
Yes, that's right.
Uh, and today, you have raised very large amount of funding. But if you can go back, from 2012, how did you raise your first round and then subsequent round, and along with the timelines for our listeners?
Sure, yeah. So when we launched the company, I think I was telling you or someone the other day, we didn't know we were a startup, right? We were just building a dhanda, and we said, look, this is interesting. Let's do it. We didn't understand VC. We didn't understand it even existed, to be very honest with you, right? And honestly, it was also pretty early, right? There wasn't that much going on, especially compared to like now, back in
Yeah.
2012. Um, so on one of our scouting trips for customers, we ended up meeting Pearl Uppal, who was the ex CEO of Fashion and You at the time, and she was launching her own D2C brand, right? So we basically met her to say, okay, well, we should pitch her to build her website, and that was the purpose of the meeting. And by the end, she basically said, look, do you guys want to raise some money? And we said, I don't know, how does it work? And we had a follow-up meeting, and that's it. Like we there was so much value that we could see she would add, sort of in our thinking. And then we met her husband Gaurav, who's the other partner at the fund, got in 500 start. I mean, we had raised about a crore in funding in 2013, middle of 13, middle to end of 13, I forget exact dates. And that got us the first sort of taste, I guess, of what VC meant, and how it could help us scale much faster, how it could help us scale the business, our thinking, get access, because they're I mean, we've been very lucky to bring on folks who've acted like true partners. We haven't really looked at capital without looking at the color of capital from day one, because again, we were so focused on saying that, look, we need to build this business, and whatever we need to build it, we will try to acquire. And capital, as financial capital, is part of it, but it's really the folks, who can help you operate better, who can make you better thinkers, and that filter still continues till date, by the way, as we think about who we want to bring into the cap stack. From there, after a year or so, we met Rajan Mehra. He was one of the early founders at Bazi. Sold it to eBay, ran eBay for like 4 5 years as the country head. So really, really solid on ground experience. Entrepreneur at heart, operator at scale. I think it was an instant click. Like he got our business in 15 minutes as we pitched it to him, and we loved the fact that he was asking such meaningful questions, and automatically tells you that this guy gets it. And that became our whatever Series A, pre-Series A kind of a round. We raised $1 million from him, brought in a few other folks at that time. We brought in BNext at the time as well, along with Rajan, who connected us to Terusan there. So, and I think that from there, obviously, moved on to further number of rounds. I don't know if you want me to enumerate them here, but
Sure,
uh,
sure. Would love to.
yeah, so then we met with Bertelsmann, about a couple of years post raising from Rajan, where we were trying to do the long tail app pivot, right? When we were trying to build Craftly, which is when Akshay had joined us as the CBO at the time. By the way, he got elevated to co-founder in 2020 because he just sort of just stuck it out through thick and thin. He was sort of, I think he was already in that mentality day one, but I think he just kind of built his equity over a period of time in every fashion with us. And I think he deserved, sort of more than deserved, to be a co-founder at the company. But anyway, so Bertelsmann came in 2016. We raised about 8 million between Nirvana and Bertelsmann and Recruit strategic partners. Went on then to raise from Tribe Capital in 2019. Uh, you know, Further, I think we at that point we had sort of already scaled Shiprocket to like half a million, 1 million transactions a month kind of a number. So there was now clarity in the business model. It had proven some level of scale. It was like sort of, now it was really about going for the big target of saying, well, how do we expand our thinking? How do we go after newer market segments? And do we build more features? Do we add more service? What do we do? I mean, that was sort of the time where Tribe really helped us, kind of narrow down on that one thing that can help. They call it an atomic unit at the firm, and again, really, really helped us focus very hard on what was going to matter, for the company. So we said our atomic unit is shipments, and that's all we did. Right? Everyone in the company soon was talking about shipments. No one talked about revenue or anything else, because the rest of it honestly was designed in a way that it would work. But when everyone is focused only on one metric, it does start to move. And that was a great sort of learning opportunity for us as well. Uh, so post Tribe,
How
we
much did you raise from
raised.
Tribe at that point in time?
So we raised about 13 million from Tribe.
That is Arjun Sethi.
Yes, that's right. This was in late 2019, I think. Again, I'm just trying to recollect in my head. And then in 2020, we raised from March Capital, who basically is a US based investor. They do a lot of tech investing. They had a lot of view on global tech companies and how they are built and what should be the thinking. They have a big India to world theme as well when it comes to tech. They have done deep tech, data stuff. So we found them to be a great fit. And so they came on board. Tribe reinvested, Bertelsmann reinvested. There we Yeah, I'm just trying to get my
Yeah,
timeline correct, but I think we raised I think about 27 million at that
yeah.
point. And then further on in July of 2021, we ended up meeting with the PayPal folks, who along with Bertelsmann and Tribe and InfoEdge Ventures, they did a round of about 45 million. And then obviously after that, we did our most recent one in December, which was with Temasek, InfoEdge, Lightrock, Zomato. So that's sort of been the journey here.
And how did you get Dipender Goel interested in the business?
Yeah, so InfoEdge came in right in the July round, so they got us to kind of meet with him, and we were anyway, we didn't have a very good reliable logistics, I mean hyperlocal logistics partner yet, so we just out of a brainstorm kept thinking that, well, they've got such a great fleet, they have hundreds of thousands of riders, why couldn't we use them? And obviously initially their view was, look, we are not in the logistics business, this is not our job, happy to guide you. And Dippy put in an angel check at that time, just so we could be in touch. And then post that, as we started raising our round, and then I think things just transpired. They just sort of, one thing led to another, and they said, like, we're happy taking a position in the company as well, and we'll help you as financial investors, but we'll also help you as operators. And then finally, we do run an hyperlocal fleet. Maybe we can add some value there. I think we love the team there, and I think it was an instant click for us again. So I think for us, we're a gut based uh, operator. We don't over optimize too much of this, because I think our historical learning has been that if it feels right, it probably is right. So we don't try to overthink some of these things too much.
So essentially, in all the rounds that you have mentioned, you raised, there would have been like the minimum kind of a negotiation to and fro between you and and the venture partner. And if it's extending to a large point of negotiation, then it means something is not right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and end of the day, we look at, we are very rational folks. If the ask is rational from either end, there's no need to get into a negotiation, to be honest. Negotiations are really when there's some irrationality in a discussion. Otherwise, it's a discussion. It's just somebody, one person trying to make the other person see their point of view. And you know so I think that way it's been pretty straightforward. We've not had a lot of negotiation in any of our rounds, by the way, right? It's been quite straightforward in terms of structuring, quite straightforward in terms of Because like I said, we cared more about the color of the money always, right, than just what the capital alone could do for us.
Got it. If you have to summarize your learnings, Sahil, over the last 9 to 10 years, and give 3 to 5 pointers to our listeners who are all entrepreneurs, what would they be on building business, on scaling business, right? From your experience.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think of the top three or four, but one that comes to mind is just around focus. We addressed it earlier in the call. It changed our life, right, in every way. Think about it. So getting that sort of narrow razor sharp focus, and it takes time because you could be focusing on the wrong thing, right, and then obviously it's not great. But if you keep hedging everything you do, then you'll basically be all over the place. So basically being true to yourself and saying, look, I'm going to focus on one thing at a time, and then either kill it or scale it, or whatever it is. That is one big one for us, and it can be a small niche of the market, it can be a vertical segment that you break, it can be a horizontal sliver of segment that you work on. But really try and pick something small. I always advise people that don't worry about the market size. I know every VC will say it the other way around, and they're right, they're not wrong. But I'm saying, as an operator, when you're about to build a business, you should worry about how deep is the problem that you're solving, and whether there's at least enough customers that can help you pay for your business, right? If that's true, then it's worth going after, because what's your downside, really, right? And obviously go after a growing market, don't go after a declining market, right? If it's a growing market and you found your niche, then at least that's what worked for us. And I do believe that it keeps life very simple, it becomes very decluttered, it helps you focus on one thing, and you can actually go deep and execute really well. I think the other thing is sort of just having a very first principle mindset to problem solving. If you can't explain it to yourself, then it's probably wrong. I mean, if a team of founders and leaders in the company, if you guys are not able to you know explain why something will work or it won't, it's probably not going to work, because just because four other people are doing it, or X company raised Y dollars in Z economy, it doesn't matter, right? But as long as you have conviction, then go after it, right? So being very first principled about that, and being honest to yourself, saying, look, I don't think this will work, but let me build this anyway because it'll help raise money, is a bad idea. Eventually, it won't sustain. The third thing is, when, and again, we use this a lot within the company, we like to think of every transaction as a win-win, right? We don't believe that businesses that are value transference businesses are very sustainable or meaningful. Businesses which are value creation businesses, which means that every stakeholder should be better off after their interaction with you, right? In our case, if it's a carrier or a merchant or a consumer or my employee or my shareholders, anybody who interacts with your platform, right, should be better off, right? So we live and dream this, we believe this to our core, and every decision we make, every new strategic move we make, everything we try to do at the company will put that sort of litmus test to say that, look, is this, like, who's the loser here? And if there's even one loser, we'll say that, look, it's not worth it because it's going to be short term, right? And the other thing I often talk about internally is that, and it's true for us as well, we've always believed we wanted to run this company forever, right? We're saying, look, we'll do this for the next 50 years, 20 years, however long it takes. And that brings a great amount of freedom, okay, in your thinking. It actually declutters a lot of the unnecessary stress that you may be taking on as a founder, right? Because, and again, assuming that is that what you want to do, if you want to build it quickly and sell it, that's fine too. But at least for us, what we learned is, by pushing out the sort of outcome, in your heads to 20, 30 years, it starts you start thinking of things very differently. You start looking at your decisions very differently. You won't worry about, oh, but I have a board meeting coming up next quarter. What am I going to do? Like, it doesn't matter. I'm doing this for 20 years. I better do what's right for the long term. So, I mean, in short, it's long term thinking, but just saying it didn't work for us until we started telling ourselves that everyone in the company that, look, we're going to do this for 20 years. Should we be doing this today, right? And that just changes how you'll approach a problem. It will change the decisions you make, and of course you have to be very patient. It's also sometimes it will lead to a lot of opportunity missed in the short run, but then again, if you're doing it for 20 years, then it's fine, right? uh, so again, those are a few things that come to mind. The rest, I think I spoke about, sort of prioritization, some of the more basic ones. It's a must. Don't build lists for yourself that are unachievable. They'll only make you depressed. They will not give you any. It will not push you to do more, believe me. Small advice that my wife gave me a few years ago, and it works wonders. I used to build lists of 20 things, like a brain dump, and I know I can't do it, but I would write it anyway, just saying, oh, there's so much to do. And then you just feel like shit at the end of the day, saying, I've done one of these 20. So then I started writing only two, saying, okay, I'm just going to put what I can do today and forget about the rest. We'll deal with one day at a time. And it worked wonders because for my morale, it was super. I don't know if that's helpful. Maybe it's just me, but I thought I'll share anyway. It's something that really helped me out.
And as a team, right, say of 750 people, how do you make sure that nobody is running after the next shiny object and people are focused on the process rather than on the goal?
Yeah, I think the OKR process just does that, right? Because it's a cascade. So when you set OKRs for the year, and OKRs are always top down, right? So you set, here's where I am today, here's where I need to be in 12 months as a company. And the process is pretty simple, from an output perspective, but to get to the five things or six things you need to do, it does take a lot of focus and thinking and brainstorming, discussions, debates. But once it comes out, you're like, okay, these are the six things, here's how we're going to measure them, and nothing in the company that is being done should be outside of these six. They should all roll up here. So that really brings in some level of guardrails in terms of, well, what are we going to do this year, this quarter, this month, this week. And if there's any item or any task that's not rolling up there, it's not going to get done. Like, it won't get picked up. No one's going to approve it because it's going to cascade down, right? So I think that process alone has been very, very helpful in terms of just aligning everybody to this common goal. And again, initially we had a lot of trouble adopting OKRs, and I was about to write it off. But then, as I started seeing the results, it just like, okay, let's take the pain to implement this, because this really is very, very useful, as for us. So I think that alone, I believe, is helped bring a lot of focus into the company. And then obviously you need to do innovation as well. So one of our OKRs, by the way, is to innovate for the future, right? So we have a set of people working on a lot of stuff that is completely experimental. I call it the -1 to 0, which is saying that, look, there's going to be a high death rate in some of these projects, but we got to do them anyway. Shiprocket was a -1 to 0 project at some point. So I think it's important to do it, but then they have to be limited into that bucket. And then that bucket has its own tenets. What does success look like? How much time do you invest in what? And you can wear a different hat when you look at that particular bucket. But for the rest of the org and the rest of the five OKRs, let's say, you got to just make sure that they are focused only on doing, and the other thing is that you separate those teams out. One of the things I've learned is it's not a great idea to put like a growing franchise, with a very different rhythm and focus, with an experimental research oriented team in the same team, right? They need to be dedicated, separate set of people, even physically separate if possible. I just feel that it's a very different rhythm. So you need to, or at least we found the need to let them operate a little bit in silos until, of course, something comes out and they're like, okay, this is worth putting back into the main platform, or this is worth doing X with or Y with, at that point.
And OKR is one thing, but aligning the company for the long term, right? And would love to learn more on that. And the -1 to 0 part, on the experimental thing, would love to learn more on that.
Sure, yeah. So I think we have always been a very people centric company. We till we were 300 odd people. Between the four co-founders, everyone knew everyone. We had personally interviewed most of the people. We understood there was a unsaid but very strong shared culture and value system in the company. Whatever our values were, everyone knew that this is sort of acceptable behavior and this is not. As that scaled, obviously we brought in better people processes. We hired our people leader who's now helping us sort of propagate a lot of those things in a more scalable fashion. So I think that just binds the company together, because hopefully everyone is thinking from a common place of values, and we don't see how you can build common goals if you don't have a common value system. It's like the language of emotions, right? And people have to have the same language, and similar language, even if not same. So that's something we really focus hard on, whether it's during sort of making hiring decisions or performance management. We make sure that the sort of value system and the culture system is upheld, because we understand how important it's a glue, right? It's very important. No matter how someone's performing, if they don't sort of understand or buy into the whole value system, then we're probably a bad fit for each other, right? And other than that, sort of having a clear strategy, being extremely transparent about successes, failures. We have a town hall every month. It could be a small check-in for 30 minutes, but we do it. We're open about saying, look, this has worked, this has failed. We're open about the strategies. Every time we've made a pivot or a expansion as well, we've been very vocal about it, so that people can understand what's happening. And I think that brings transparency. It brings a certain amount of trust within the company. And along with that, as I said, from a more operational perspective, the OKRs really help do the task management well. So it's a good blend of keeping everybody focused on that long term vision and goal. The -1 to 0 is actually, we're a company that thrives on innovation, right? So we've always done it. We've just never been able to articulate it that well to ourselves or to our team, and now externally. It's something we just have in our DNA. We've always done it from day one. We look at it, goes back to solving problems sort of from a first principle perspective, and not caring about how others did it, etc. So I think that thinking process, as it started translating into business or translating into a growing scaling platform, we wanted to replicate it and keep on doing it, so that we have a growth engine of the future, right? Because and our fulfillment network, for example, 2 years ago, it was in the -1 to 0, right? There was only three people who were trying to build a mini space to see what happens. It was just a test, could have failed, right? And many projects do. So everything we do in those programs, they're supposed to have a high death rate, right? If they don't, then we're just not doing enough. Like we're not doing too many. We're not taking enough risk in experimenting. The whole point of experimentation is to set a hypothesis. So we'll say that if we're trying to build a new feature or a product, if it doesn't reach X adoption, X million dollars in half a year, 9 months, then we're going to kill it, because it's not worth spending more time and energy on. And if it's able to graduate from that particular milestone, then we can put it into 0 to 1 bucket, right? And then there's a different set of targets, and then 1 to 10, and then so on, right? So we think that every work stream in the company needs to fit on one of these classifications. So the right treatment, the right kind of people, the right kind of freedom, the right kind of processes can be put there. Because if you imagine trying to do a if you put a guy who's great at doing 100 to 1,000 journey, and you put them on a -1 to 0, they'll fail, because they, and vice versa, right? Because it just requires very different skill sets and very different kind of DNA to do any of those components. So we like to think about things on that sort of spectrum, and then put in the right folks at the right place at the right time to try and solve some of these problems.
I would want to continue for more and more, because It's amazing that such a young age you have so much clarity, Sahil. Is there a method to this madness? Like you read a lot, or you spend time in meditation a lot?
Yeah, I used to read a lot in the early days. I spent a lot of time reading all kinds of anything, right? Business
Yeah,
books, fiction, spiritual books, whatever it is. Haven't been able to do a lot of it in the last few
yeah,
years, but I think I've been blessed with having sort of just amazing mentors. And I have team members, who mentor me. People who worked at a larger scale than me. I'm quite introspective as well. I my founders, we keep each other honest, just kind of sharpening each other all the time. And then our investor, some of our investors are very close, have become very close mentors to us. They obviously, some have operated, most of them have operated at some point, but they have a very keen sense of strategy. They have a keen sense of how other companies, because that's what they do, they analyze that, right? And that's been immensely helpful as well. So I think in short, it's about having a very open mind, right? Knowing that you're going to have to learn constantly, because that you need that to be able to, and you can learn from anywhere. It's not like, constantly learning, right? Everything you do, every time you're learning constantly. So just being cognizant of that, so that you can try and influence more of your time towards learning more and more, and then obviously being sort of trying to synthesize that into whatever is your problem, and how can you apply all that you've picked up to your set of problems.
no, thank you so much, Sahil. It's been a great learning experience for me walking in your shoes, right? I hope my listeners are able to take away the same kind of lessons that I took from this conversation. Would have wanted to record for a few more hours, but time is a limit. Thank you so much again.
Thank you so much, Siddharth, for the kind words, and thank you for hosting me. Really, really, really appreciate it, and look forward to staying in touch. Thanks.